What's up guys, welcome to the first installation of Technique Tuesday, where each week I'll be giving you a closer look at my creation process and breaking down some type of special technique I used that week. Today we're going to be looking at some post-production in photography and graphic design. I'm going to be showing you guys a quick little tool I do to give you very unique text outlines. I actually used this on the post that I made my posting schedule announcement with. And you can see here the text is against a pretty noisy background, but you can still read it really clearly, and it hasn't lost that artistic professional feel that someone took time to make this nice. If I go ahead and just disable that outline, it immediately loses some of its hype. With the outline turned on, it's not like it draws your attention to it that much or makes you think it's like the most beautiful thing, but it gives it that nice professional feel. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to get that. So the first thing I'm going to do is make some of my layers invisible so you can really see what I'm pointing at more clearly with all that noise without all that noise in the way. Alright, so I have this text, the phrase new posting schedule, and I want to make it look nicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the thumbnail between the name of the layer and the visibility icon. Right click that and go to select pixels. So this is a really quick way to select everything in a layer without selecting the entire layer. So the layer that this text is in is a text box about that big, and I don't want to select everything like the whole text box because then it would just be a big square. I wanted to get a selection of only what was in the text box. Now this is really great for text because it saves you so much time in outlining, but it's really useful in other things too. You can right click, select pixels in any layer. So once I've selected what I want to outline, I'm going to go to select, modify, expand. So pop-up will pop up asking you how many pixels you want to expand by. And this is something that you really get a feel for. There's not something I can just tell you what number to put in. It depends on your aspect ratio, and it also depends on how big the image you're editing in is, as well as how big the object in your image is. So you're gonna have to play around with it. For text, I usually do between 10 and 25, depending on how big the image is. I wanna give it a really pronounced feel, so I'm gonna go ahead and do 20, just to really blow it up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So, it actually wasn't very much. So I am going to select, modify, expand. I'm going to make this thing just huge, just 50. Really blow it up. So now I have a selection of everything in the text layer plus expanded outwards by 50 pixels. One thing that'll be really easy to do, which a lot of people do, Control-Shift-N to a new layer. I'm going to call this black outline. You just make sure that your text is above it, which it already is. So then you go back to the new layer you just made from your selection and drop the paint bucket in. Now, that does make it easier to read against a noisy background, but it does not look professional at all. So what I do is, instead of creating a new layer and making it black, I go to the layer that my text is on top of. In this case, it's my bottom layer, which is the background. And then I do Control-J and create a new layer. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and rename this for y'all. So, drag this directly under my text just to make my workflow a little easier. So, what I just did is I took the shape of my selection, selected the bottom layer, which is this image here, and then by hitting Control-J, I duplicated the contents of my selection into a new layer. So you see, if I turn that off, you can still see where I made the selection and hit Control-J. That's under this layer here called Rainbow Outline. Turn that off, it goes away. So cool, I made a new layer outlining my text in whatever image was below it. How do I make that look nice? Because right now it's invisible. So all you have to do is edit the layer under it, and it'll look almost like a shadow, almost like you did something in the dark room by layering two different photos, and you're almost doing that. So right click, select pixels. So now I've selected everything in the new layer of the background, duplicate it on top. I'm gonna go ahead, image adjustments, and I'm gonna go ahead and just do brightness contrast for y'all. Super quick. You turn the brightness up and it'll make it brighter. You turn the contrast up, it'll give you more contrast. So in order to really make it super clear against the pre-existing background, I'm gonna max them out for y'all. Get rid of the selection, and now you can see it has that cool outline on it. Now, when I blew it up to 50 pixels, it took away a little bit of that professional feel. And just blowing up the brightness contrast doesn't look that great. Now let's go and do it a little more realistically. So I'm gonna Control Z until I have my original selection. Okay. Select, modify, expand. I'm gonna do something a little more realistic, 15 pixels. Okay, go back to the layer my image, my text is gonna be on top of. Control J to duplicate layer. Move that layer back under my text. Okay. Select the pixels in that layer. Image adjustments. Now this time I'm going to show you guys levels. Levels is a pretty good way to do it. Oh, I didn't mean to say levels. Alright, so right click, select pixels. Now I'm going to go to image adjustments. I'm going to show you exposure. It's a pretty nice way to do it. There's 3 different knobs. Explaining exactly how they work is a little bit complicated, but an easy way to think of it is that exposure is going to make what's already bright even brighter. Gamma corrections is going to take what's already dark and make it brighter or darker. And offset is going to make everything more white. Not the same color brighter, but more white. So I'm going to start off by taking gamma correction, dragging it to the left to take my dark values and make them brighter. Then I'm going to go to exposure, drag it to the right to make my bright values brighter. And still some spots that are kind of mid-tones that you don't really see that well, so I'm going to grab offset and add white to all my values, give it a little bit of a pastel feel to it. Now, if you're using white text, you want to be careful not to use this too much because the pastel outline can make the text a little bit hard to read and can make them run together too much. But just a little bit shouldn't be too much. Now I have the deselection, and look at that, guys. It pops out. Look at that outline compared to the regular text. It doesn't have that corny black and white mean look to it, but it's also not just thrown on top. It's against a noisy background, but it looks professional, it looks artistic, it's interesting, and because I did it in its own layer, if I grab them together, I can still move it around, and it doesn't leave a hole in the background. And there are even maybe other spots where the same rainbow outline looks better. Now, like I said, you can use this for things other than text too. Real quick, I'm going to show you guys an interview series that I use this for. So I did this interview series while I was I was volunteering for the Andrew Yang campaign. I was about 2/3 of the way through putting everything together when the campaign was suspended, so I never put any of this out. But the select pixels, expand, and then duplicate layer, edit in the background is something that I use for this. I made it really minor, but this outline around the chair, I actually did that way. Let's see if I can find that. So if I turn him off, you'll see the outline is still kind of there. That's from taking it away from the layers under it, but it's mostly in his layer where those lines are. So I can take that away and the line is still there. You can still see the white line even though it's against transparency. The only reason you can do that is because I had the white paint in its own layer and then merged it to the layer with the chair and the dude in it. So, thanks for tuning in to my Technique Tuesday. Hopefully this little tip will help up your guys' photography game and layout and graphic design game. Tune back in next week for more tips and tricks on how to make art.